We'll see you at 6.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the debate about what the United States should be doing in Somalia, if anything more at all. The debate is getting more intense and certainly more emotional. When the country learned over the weekend that 12 American soldiers had been killed, more than 70 wounded, and some had been captured by Somali forces loyal to the warlord General Mohammed Aidid, the Pentagon rushed reinforcements to Mogadishu, the capital. The Clinton administration rushed reinforcements to Capitol Hill to try to stave off an assault on the president's current Somali policy. From Washington, our first report, ABC's John McWethy.
After they met behind closed doors to hear the president's top foreign policy and defense advisors, many members were angry.
Anyone who watched any of their local or national news would have gotten more information than was provided in that briefing.
I think everybody wants to be supportive of the president, but I think support for the president in the country and the Congress is dying out very, very rapidly.
These pictures of dead American soldiers and the captive helicopter pilot were driving an increasingly emotional debate that could result in the cutoff of money to run the Somalia operation within weeks.
Americans have no desire to see their men and women degraded, killed, and defiled by lawless infidels who drag the bodies of Americans through the streets to be kicked and spat upon.
At one point in the Senate, it was a Republican defending the president, a Democrat on the attack.
The Congress must stand with our president. Our president is doing his level best, and nothing we do can ever be construed as cut and run, or it'll destroy our credibility to form coalitions to deal with comparable situations in the future.
If we're going to have a goal there, let's define it and let's vote on it. I'm not asking to cut and run. I'm not asking to stay. I'm saying let's just have our goal. Let's vote for it.
9 months ago, under the banner of the United Nations, the U.S., with overwhelming public support, committed troops to Somalia to prevent mass starvation. The mission was a smashing success. Then in May, the UN took an even tougher job trying to put together a political structure by which the country could eventually be governed. But one warlord, Mohammed Aidid, refused to cooperate. And when his forces killed 24 Pakistani peacekeepers in June, Aidid became a wanted man. The U.S. argued that Aidid had to be removed, captured or killed, or the entire UN effort in Somalia would collapse. But in the back alleys of Mogadishu, Somalia's largest city, Aidid has proved that he is a much tougher foe than anyone bargained for. The administration tonight is arguing against giving in too quickly.
I think the question is now how the United States forces should finish the job, how we should complete the job and get out.
The president, who was on the West Coast, rushed back to Washington tonight so he could meet with his national security team. Faced with so much opposition in Congress, the administration is now looking for a way to declare victory in Somalia and, in time, withdraw. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
What is often difficult for many Americans to understand is how the U.S. military, with all its advanced weaponry and seemingly highly trained soldiers, can be denied victory by what on the surface looks like a ragtag army. As our Pentagon correspondent Bob Zelnick reports, it is complicated.
The tanks and armored personnel carriers loaded for the flight to Somalia are meant to come quickly to the rescue of any troops under attack in any part of Mogadishu, day or night.
We're not trying to increase the force in any large way at this point. We're just responding to an immediate need.
That response comes too late for the forces attacked over the weekend by General Aidid's militiamen. It took more than 9 hours for relief forces to fight their way to the scene. That's because the lightly armed U.S. quick reaction troops were blocked by heavy fire and had to wait for Allied tank reinforcements. Senior military officials have told ABC News that a request for armored equipment early last month was sidetracked because the Pentagon did not want to be seen to be building up U.S. forces in the country. The armored equipment is necessary partly because helicopters are proving easy targets for guerrillas who are now using converted artillery guns and rocket-propelled grenades against them. Privately, U.S. officials paint an increasingly bleak picture of security in South Mogadishu. Much of the area is either controlled by Aidid's gunmen or bitterly contested. They say that Aidid also controls a large triangular area of central Somalia from where he is able to secure steady reinforcements of troops and weapons. Increasingly, military leaders say that restoring security in Mogadishu would require a commitment far beyond what public opinion would support. Privately, many hope for a political deal with Aidid's clan rather than escalating the fighting. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the Pentagon.
Still in Washington, President Clinton's choice for chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is closer to confirmation. The Senate Armed Services has voted unanimously in favor of Army General John Shalikashvili, and the full Senate is expected to concur. The Foreign Minister of Syria, Farouk al-Shara, was in Washington today. That's not him, that's Warren Christopher, the Secretary of State. That's Mr. Shara. They were there to meet. Mr. al-Shara is the highest level Syrian official to be received at the State Department since 1975. Syria is still on the State Department's list of nations that sponsor terrorism, but the United States is very interested in having Syria and Israel reach a peace agreement. The Chinese government today defied much of the world and exploded a nuclear device underground. An international moratorium on nuclear testing has been in place for more than a year. President Clinton put his finger on the dilemma. If other nations do not abide by the moratorium, he said the U.S. may have to resume testing as well. In a moment, Mr. Yeltsin, he moves to consolidate his power in Russia. On the American agenda tonight, the case against television violence, and your money, and the former senator, and his golden fleece.
You're about to see another side of Efferdent. Two-layered Efferdent. The white side helps clean and deodorize with Arm & Hammer baking soda. The blue side also has more mint to provide more freshening power than ever before, making this the best Efferdent ever. Two-layered Efferdent. Clean, fresh dentures come out of the blue.
Every day should start with Quaker Oats.
Nothing cold can steam you up and help keep you rolling all morning like hot Quaker oatmeal.
Every day should feel this good.
When this was my piano, I dusted with Pledge for a beautiful shine with no buildup.
Now that it's ours, I use Touchable Pledge.
With Pledge, smears just disappear.
I taught someone that
Same song.
Pledge for a touchable shine.
In Moscow, now that Russian forces have crushed the rebellion against Boris Yeltsin's authority, Mr. Yeltsin has said about punishing those who defied him. He is considering putting the leaders of the uprising on trial for treason. There were still a lot of troops on the streets of Moscow today. One newspaper quotes a mother explaining to her 4-year-old boy there was a war here yesterday. ABC's David Ensor on the day after.
Around Moscow, police and soldiers are still watchful for snipers. A heavy military presence remains in the city, but the cleanup after yesterday's battle has started. According to Russian estimates, at least 300 people were killed in 2 days of fighting. As many as 1,000 may have been injured. The Parliament building is a charred ruin. Inside, the chamber is almost deserted. Arrayed on the floor, hundreds of weapons Yeltsin's enemies used to defend themselves and to try to topple his government. Police rifle through the office of the man who led the rebellion, the former vice president, Alexander Rutskoy. Rutskoy is in Lefortovo prison now, along with hundreds of others. Now that he has a free hand, Yeltsin is moving quickly to start cleaning house politically. Politicians who stood against him must fear for their jobs. In Siberia, 2 anti-Yeltsin governors have been fired. So has Russia's chief prosecutor. And Yeltsin is tightening control of the media. A television program run by an extreme nationalist has been taken off the air. Some newspapers have been closed. Others are being censored. Throughout the day, people came for a look at the burned-out Parliament building. Yevgeny, a doctor, says he no longer expects this to be a truly free country.
Democracy will come to Russia so far in the future that we won't live to see it. Russia is Russia. There will be just one power from now on.
But Alexei, an engineer, is cheering Yeltsin on.
This was the logical end of Bolshevism. Here they found a graveyard to bury it.
But on the streets tonight, thousands of extra police and soldiers are enforcing Moscow's 11 p.m. curfew. A reminder that with one-man rule firmly in place here, at least for now, Russia's future as a democratic country cannot be taken for granted. David Ensor, ABC News, Moscow.
American embassy officials in Moscow say that one American, a lawyer living in the city, was killed on Sunday as fighting raged around the Russian television complex. 6 other Americans were injured, including a Marine guard who was hit by a bullet at the American embassy, which is just across the street from the Parliament building. Pope John Paul moved today to reassert his control over what the Roman Catholic Church teaches about right and wrong. A new papal encyclical, 6 years in the writing, makes it clear that John Paul expects church doctrine on morality to be followed. Encyclicals are basically guides to church policy. Significantly, while they are often addressed to all Catholics, this one is addressed only to Catholic bishops, who are expected to be the enforcers. Here's ABC's Bill Blakemore.
John Paul sternly tells his bishops in the encyclical they must be strict with priests and Catholic institutions that question church teaching on personal morality. He insists they must call artificial birth control an intrinsic evil, and once again forbid abortion, masturbation, premarital sex, and homosexual activity. John Paul says bishops should strip the title Catholic from any institution that does not teach these doctrines.
The Pope insists that there are some things that are always wrong, not because the Church makes rules about them, but because they're destructive of our human nature, of our relations to others, and our relations to God.
America's bishops today took the encyclical extremely seriously, cautiously calling it an important document that should end the sense of confusion many Catholics have about church teachings. In Rome, churchmen said John Paul wrote the document because he fears the world, especially the West, is becoming so permissive, it's ignoring the very idea of morality. American Catholics, as polls have long shown, use artificial birth control and engage in other church-forbidden sex-related activities at the same rate as non-Catholics. John Paul is hoping that by going over their heads, being tough with the bishops who direct their priests, he can eventually change the parishioners' minds. Bill Blakemore, ABC News.
When we come back in our next segment, what to do about violent criminals who've been freed early from prison.
The good news, diets rich in antioxidants may benefit your long-term health. The bad news, the average diet is not rich in antioxidants. Today's news, Protegra, the new antioxidant supplement that's all antioxidants. More vitamin E, vitamin C, and beta-carotene. Protegra, with more antioxidant support than you get from a regular multivitamin. To boost your antioxidant levels, even if you take a multivitamin, add Protegra to your daily routine. Protegra, the good news in antioxidants.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel there are songs to be sung.
Introducing Fat-Free Promise Ultra. 0 fat with just 5 delicious calories a serving.
And every time I see you grin,
It's the first fat-free margarine. Definitely one of a kind.
you make me feel so young.
Regular or new Fat-Free Promise Ultra. Get Heart Smart.
I want this to look perfect on my daughter. But a bit of arthritis pain doesn't help. My doctor recommended Advil by name. Advil contains the same medicine he prescribes for many patients, but in non-prescription strength. It relieves the pain in my stiff joints. In fact, for minor arthritis pain, doctors recommend Advil most. And Advil is gentler to my stomach than aspirin.
Mom, it's beautiful.
Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Our next report tonight from North Carolina is going to convince a great many people that there's an emergency there. Too many criminals and not enough prison space. Because the courts oblige North Carolina to provide a certain amount of space for each prisoner, and because the legislature has not agreed to pay for enough prisons, the state is simply having to let criminals go before they serve their sentences. ABC's Linda Patillo reports on the consequences.
Daniel Green served only 2 years and 2 months of a 6-year prison sentence for splitting a man's skull with an axe. 7 weeks after his release, Green was charged with murdering Michael Jordan's father, James Jordan. Since June, 17 North Carolina parolees have been charged with murder. All had served only a fraction of their sentences.
Does the state shoulder some of the responsibility for those murders?
Well, I think so. I think the state has to.
Because of overcrowding, North Carolina is releasing record numbers of inmates long before their sentences are up. 26,000 last year, including 88 murderers and 37 rapists. Prisoners in North Carolina are being paroled so fast, an average inmate serves only 1 month for every year of the sentence. Inmates are well aware that a sentence of 10 years can mean 10 months. Convicted of assault, Dean Martin had a choice, a 3-year prison term or 5 years probation.
I chose to come to prison. I come off of parole November 6th.
If you get out, you would have served how much time?
6 months.
I think the criminals are laughing at us because they know if they commit a serious crime that they're not going to have to serve very long.
John Gallagher's daughter, Chrissy, was left brain damaged after she was abducted and assaulted. Charged with the crime, a parolee on early release. Chrissy and a dozen other victims are suing the state to stop the early release of criminals. Still, the revolving door spins. In August, North Carolina released more than 3,000 inmates early, an all-time high. Linda Patillo, ABC News, Raleigh, North Carolina.
And one other point. Why do the authorities release the most violent? Because they've run out of non-violent prisoners to let go. In medical news tonight, yet another study which links a fatty diet with cancer. Researchers from the Harvard School of Public Health say that men over 40 who eat a lot of animal fat, especially red meat, increase their risk of prostate cancer. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrials gained 9.5 points today to close at 35.87, and the trading was heavy. When we come back, violence on television. Is life really imitating art? Our American Agenda.
Here you go. Try this. It's a new cereal.
Ooh, granola.
No, it's new. It's Branola.
Great crunchy granola.
Bob, it's more than granola. It's Branola with a B, like your name.
Ah, but that taste, those crunchy golden clusters baked with a touch of honey. And look, raisins.
But it's got fiber from bran.
Oh, I get it. Bran granola. Branola with a B. Like my name. Bob.
New low-fat post-granola cereal. Original or with raisins. More than granola. Branola.
You are about to experience the extraordinary power of renewal from Rayovac. A new kind of alkaline battery created to be reusable 25 times or more with the Renewal Power Station. Inside, there's a microchip that knows how much power each Renewal battery needs and custom charges it for you. So you get maximum life from every battery with alkaline power in every charge. That's the power of renewal from Rayovac.
The insurance business can be a hazardous place, an uneasy economy, a jagged stock market, failed real estate, junk bonds. One company protects its policyholders by shunning risky investments, offering solid supplemental insurance coverage, combining prudent judgment with dedicated service. That company is Aflac. Aflac, insuring over 35 million people worldwide.
To help relieve her heartburn, Original Rolaids uses an aluminum salt. But his antacid is Tums, and Tums has calcium.
Something my body needs anyway. I like that.
Now you can battle time and the environment with the power of natural botanicals and Biolage Hydrating Shampoo. Until the world is a safer place for your hair, there's Biolage.
Biolage Hydrating Shampoo by Matrix.
We've put the subject of television violence on the American agenda this week. Not the violence from Moscow and Somalia and so many other places, but the violence that's intended as entertainment on television, all day, every day. There's a strong movement in Congress now to put limits on the type of violence seen in entertainment programs. Some people have always argued that TV violence may lead to the real thing. We've asked our agenda reporter, Rebecca Chase, to look at the latest evidence.
Since the earliest shots were fired in prime time, a debate has raged.
This business of violence is being unnecessarily overdone.
40 years of accusations.
There is a correlation over time with early TV viewing of extensive violence and later aggression.
And decades of denials.
The conclusions that were reached regarding violence and its impact are simply unwarranted.
During this time, there have been more than 3,000 reports and scientific studies reviewed by 5 national commissions and the Surgeon General. Nearly everyone has come to the conclusion that watching television violence can lead to real violence. But how did they reach this conclusion? What does the research show? One of the most significant studies began here 33 years ago in the elementary schools of Columbia County in upstate New York. The subjects, every third grader in the county, 875 8-year-olds. Researchers using techniques like this,
who is always getting into trouble,
collected data at school and at home, asking children's parents about lifestyles and child rearing in search of the roots of violence.
We have these 2 different independent sources of information, and we were going to relate them. We never thought that television had anything to do with it.
The researchers re-interviewed the original subjects by phone and computer at age 18 and again at age 30 to determine who had become violent.
How many times in the past 12 months have you threatened to hit or throw something at your spouse?
They had expected to find aggressive behavior in adults linked to how they were disciplined, their IQs, or personality traits. They were not expecting that shows like The Three Stooges and Gunsmoke would prove to be just as important.
Our first reaction was shock. Of all these variables at age 8, television violence was predicting aggression 10 years later about as well as any of them.
An examination of police records when the subjects were 30 revealed an even stronger statistical correlation. One of the few things the violent adults had in common was watching a lot of violent TV at a critical time.
Those children who had been watching more television violence when they were 8 years old were more likely to have been convicted of violent crime.
Huseman and Aaron got the same results in Finland, Poland, Australia, and Israel. Meanwhile, other researchers here were finding in the lab that watching violent TV actually caused violent behavior. In this 1963 study, children who watched a violent TV show were far more aggressive immediately afterwards than those who watched another program. The most disputed of all the findings, violent cartoons.
I think you graze the outer edge of incredulity when you say cartoons are too violent and causing all sorts of horrendous things in the marketplace.
This doesn't affect Jack Valenti. He's an adult. He doesn't look at these things the same way as young kids do.
In fact, studies confirm that children under 8 do not distinguish between fantasy and reality. And yet what they learn at this time stays with them a lifetime.
The Three Stooges, what's wrong with that?
They're learning from the Three Stooges that slapping, hitting, punching is just a natural way of behaving every day. It doesn't have any real consequences. It's just what you do.
After 3 decades of research, it is clear that heavy viewing of violent television at an early age is contributing to violence in the streets. But while so much about violence seems beyond control, something can be done about what children see in their living rooms. This is Rebecca Chase for the American Agenda.
And tomorrow on the agenda, trying to limit the impact of violence on children, that violence they see on television. Back in just a moment.
World News Tonight with Peter Jennings and Your Money are brought to you by Dreyfus.
When it comes to investing, we like to go for it.
Our money takes advantage of the market like the big boys do.
We're the big boys.
What's our motto? Diversity is the spice of life. Stocks, bonds, money markets. Dreyfus continually stands the market.
Here's Dreyfus.
Our other motto is never invest on an empty stomach.
That's also important.
When this was my piano, I dusted with Pledge for a beautiful shine with no buildup.
Now that it's ours, I use Touchable Pledge.
With Pledge, smears just disappear.
I taught someone that
Same song.
Pledge for a touchable shine.
I go simple, I go easy, I go Greyhound.
Now when you plan ahead, you can save 50% with Go Easy Fares. It's our biggest discount, so call now.
I go Greyhound.
I knew something must be wrong. I was getting these sharp pains, and sometimes pressure and bloating. I'm glad I asked my doctor. He said it was gas and recommended Mylanta Gas.
Mylanta Gas. It has the best medicine for gas.
Give me one good reason to try new Serenity bladder control guards.
This new blue layer, only Serenity has it.
Pulls the wetness in quicker.
Odor protection.
Drier, fresher? That just feels cleaner.
New Dry Layer Plus from Serenity.
The mood is one of outrage at Fort Campbell tonight as soldiers react to the capture of one of their own in war-torn Somalia. Details at 6.
Finally from us this evening, our regular feature, Your Money, a day late this week because of all the news from Russia and Somalia. It's exactly a year now since we began these weekly reports on some of the ways the federal government spends your tax dollars. To mark the anniversary, ABC's John Martin has been conferring with a former politician who raised investigating government waste to an art form.
We have a deficit now of over $300 billion a year. It's a crushing deficit. So we shouldn't spend one nickel on anything that's not absolutely essential.
William Proxmire made a career of watching the nickels from his seat in the U.S. Senate. In 1975, he created the Golden Fleece Award to tell taxpayers he thought their money was often being spent frivolously. He gave the first award to the National Science Foundation for spending $84,000 to find out why people fall in love. He gave the National Institutes of Health the award for spending $102,000 to find out if sunfish who drink tequila are more aggressive than sunfish who drink gin. Retired 5 years now, Proxmire still keeps his eye on government spending from this tiny office in the Library of Congress, a perk he has no problem accepting. Genuine extravagance, he says, comes on a different scale. Example, the presidential retreat.
Camp David is an astounding waste of money. That costs at least $2 million a year.
But shouldn't the president be able to relax in some degree of luxury?
You can relax anywhere. The president doesn't need a Camp David to relax.
Another target is the cost of Congress. Staffs and expenses of $3.5 million a year for each member of Congress, on top of the members' paychecks.
They come here imbued with the idea of saving money. I'm going to go to Congress, I'm going to change things in Washington, I'm going to save money, and then they get here. What happens?
When you have a budget that is not a few $1 million a year as it is in maybe a small town, or a few $100 million as it is in the state, but is billions and billions and billions of dollars, then the amount that you spend doesn't seem like very much.
For taxpayers, Proxmire says, it's more like a family tragedy. Your mother and father have gone on a spending spree, he says, and left you to pay the bills. John Martin, ABC News, Washington.
John Martin will be back next week. That's our report on World News Tonight. Nightline later. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a good evening. Good night.
Good evening. I'm Ann Holt.
And I'm John Sigenthaler. Will the battle over what you'll be watching on Nashville cable TV go down to the wire?
Metro Police say a store clerk was shot just because he didn't wait on some customers fast enough.
And angry words tonight here at home over the capture of a Fort Campbell pilot in Somalia. Helicopter pilot Michael Durant has been in the hands of Somali gunmen for 2 days now.
He was captured in the fighting that left at least 12 American soldiers dead and others in the hands of the enemy. Channel 2's Neil Karlinski is at Fort Campbell with the latest. Neil?
Ann and John, we are just outside the gates of the Fort Campbell Army Base right now. The captured helicopter pilot Michael Durant is stationed right here. And all day today, people here have been waiting for any word at all about his condition.
Black Hawk pilot.
The 32-year-old Fort Campbell pilot Michael Durant has become the focus of attention across the country.
Innocent people being killed is not good.
At his hometown in New Hampshire, yellow ribbons have sprouted up as a tribute. Back in Clarksville, his wife and one-year-old son have remained indoors, surrounded by friends and family. The family has chosen not to speak with reporters, while neighbors offer sympathy.